Welcome back to Dead to Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another episode of my Animorphs series where I am recapping and reviewing every single book in the Animorphs series, except for Megamorphs and all the spin-offs. We're not doing them. We need to get to the end. Welcome to the first video in Animorphs April this year. I'm so excited to be bringing you 4 episodes of Animorphs this month. I think it's 4, it might be 5. In this Animorphs April, we're going to be going from Animorphs 31 to Animorphs 34, therefore, which is a great time. I've only so far read Animorphs 31, so I don't actually know where this is going yet. I do want to say, off the bat, that this book very much has a lot of talk about war in it, particularly war in Europe, and I'm aware that that might be a sensitive subject for a number of people, so if you don't want to skip this one or if you want to take a pause on this one, please do feel free. And I also don't want anyone to think I'm being super flippant about war in general. I'm aware that conflict is a very difficult thing, and the only conflict I'm being flippant about is the one that is absolutely pretend, the parasitic slugs. Not flippant about any of the other conflict. I do have a lot of opinions on war, but this is not the place to have them. I just wanted to let you know there's going to be some discussion of war coming up, and I'm aware that with general current events, it might not be something that everyone wants to partake in. That's all. And also, like, we could get into how Animorphs is all about war and just war and all of the above, but this is not the place for that. Maybe we'll do that at the end as a wrap-up. So today we are talking about Animorphs 31, The Conspiracy, which is a Jake book, and as you can see, the tagline is, when they say it's all in your head, believe it. And at the beginning of this book, I was really nervous that it was going to reveal that this whole thing had been a dream. We're going to do a drastic U-turn at book 30. We're okay. Jake gives us the standard Animorphs opening, giving us 30 books of alien fighting content. And this is not a clean war, if there is such a thing. I mean a war like World War II, where thousands saw the wrongs being committed and stood up to correct them, where you attacked an enemy you could see, an enemy who wore a uniform and came right back at you, guns blazing. The good kind of war. But yes, it is a different conflict than conflict with parasitic hosts, so we'll give Jake this. Jake also tells us that his great-grandpa, who fought in World War II, told Jake once that he has an old soul, which has sort of become a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because Jake has seen way more than any kid probably should. And Jake's reflecting on how that's kind of because he's the leader, he is responsible for stuff. Most important, a leader won't ask anyone to do anything he wouldn't do himself. That one came home to haunt me, because in 3 days my brother Tom was either going to kill or be killed, and it was up to me to decide. We're in for a fun one. I hope you're prepared for ethical dilemmas galore. So we open the book proper with Jake coming home from school and witnessing his mum running out of the house and hopping into a cab. He automatically assumes the worst, and he's not super wrong. He stops her and he says, "Mum, what's going on?" And it turns out that his great-grandpa, the aforementioned veteran, has in fact died, and his mum is going out to his cabin in the woods to make preparations for the funeral. And once Jake's dad clears his schedule, Jake, Tom, and his dad will be heading out to join them. And so with his mum leaping into the taxi and driving away, Jake goes into the house to witness Tom throwing a hissy fit. So, Tom's already informed me that he doesn't want to leave his friends to attend his great-grandfather's funeral, my father said, looking at Tom, not me. However, he doesn't have a choice. We're going. All of us. Their plan is to head out on Saturday, which I think is a couple of days on. I'm not 100% clear on the timeline. It doesn't really matter. It's in a few days. And Tom obviously has made plans with the sharing then, because he is part of a Yeerk cult. Tom is dead set on not going to that lake, but why? The only other house around was an old abandoned hunting lodge across the lake. No cable, no Taco Bell, no streetlights or crowds, no movies, no malls, no sharing, no Yeerks. And therein lies the answer. They'd be away for 4 days. They're going to be there from Saturday through to Tuesday, and that is too long for a Yeerk to survive without Kandrona rays. That Yeerk would indeed starve. I gave my brother a look of sympathy, making peace. Maybe you can get out of it some way. I had to fight to keep the sneer off my face. Or maybe, Yeerk, your cover is falling apart. Maybe you'll have to choose between keeping Tom and keeping your filthy life. They have a lovely family dinner, where Tom tries desperately to get out of going, but his dad is not budging. Jake heads out, undecided if he wants Marco's practical advice or Cassie's emotional advice, but it doesn't really matter, the choice is made for him, as he runs into Marco, who is coming over to grab Jake's English notes. They walk back to Jake's house as he fills them in on what's going on, only to discover that Jake's dad's car is gone. Yeah, Jake left a controller who was het up about something alone with his non-controller dad. Great choices. In the kitchen, he notices that the note from his mum that was tacked onto the fridge is gone, and so they rootle about in the trash to find it. He fishes it out to discover another note from his dad that Tom has hidden. Jake went to a sharing meeting with Tom to explain why he can't help them out this weekend. Be back soon. Love, Dad. Tom's come up with a plan. If he makes his dad a controller too, then he doesn't have to go to the funeral. Yay! Marco, who has no idea how they're going to locate Jake's dad and stop this, covers their tracks, re-crumpling the note. Tom cannot find out that they know what they know. cycle of knowing. It would be bad. Inspiration strikes. They can ask the Chi, who have informants within the sharing. Jake is acting irrationally. A bit of a theme for this book, and he's wanting to call them from within the house. Marco says, look, right, we need to stop this. Pull yourself together. I know it's difficult. This all happened with my mum too, and we both know how that went, so let's deal. They call the Chi from the payphone. The Chi say, there's no sharing meeting scheduled today. I don't know what you're talking about. So they must have called an impromptu meeting. Wait, I blurted. Stupid! I don't have to find the Yix to find my father. All I have to do is find my father and we'll find the meeting. Should have thought of it. This does sound like a fairly obvious and stupid plan, but it turns out that it's because Jake's dad carries a cell phone, right? The Chi can triangulate the signal. They can find Jake's dad. It'll be fine. The difficulty is, if they call the phone to triangulate the call, and Tom finds out that they are looking for the dad, and then they stop the meeting, it won't take too long for the Yix to figure out that maybe these children aren't all they seem to be. I don't care, I said, before I could stop myself. The sympathy on Marco's face evaporated. You're not getting me killed to save your father, he snapped. Thankfully, Eric is on the line, and he tells them that if they call and then, hang up, he'll still be able to triangulate the signal, so it should be fine. They call, and wait the agonising moments for someone to answer, but it's Tom. Marco snatches the phone back before Jake can say anything incriminating, which he 1000% was about to do, and then they hang up and get back in touch with Eric. Eric has found a few locations where the meeting could be. A senior citizen centre, a small mall, a hardware store, an auto body shop, or in one of about 75 private homes. To narrow that all down, they used the background audio from the phone call where someone said normal hours, which makes them think probably the mall. And also this series is obsessed with the mall, so that checks out from just, plot reasons. They nip back into Jake's house and don their morphing suits before hopping into Bird Morph and flying over there. I'll meet you there, I said. No, wait! Marco, I'm faster than you are. He hesitated. Yeah, okay, but Jake... What? I snapped. I expected him to say, don't do anything stupid. You're not alone, man, Marco said. The bro. It is strong. They make it to the mall and they rule out the Starbucks as being too public a space to have this meeting. The knife shop, as terrifying as that might be, is indeed closed, but there is an antique centre that seems to have a closed sign on the door, but the lights are on and people are moving around. Jake spots his dad's car out in the parking lot and lands to demorph to start the rescue. But what morph would be best? He starts heading towards Tiger when Marco stops him and reminds Jake that interrupting this meeting in a very visible way would be a catastrophically bad idea. We have to create a distraction, mess up the meeting but not let them know why, Marco said, as thick, coarse hair began sprouting from his bulging, growing body. We're going to buy some time, and I've got it all planned. Do your Falcon morph again. Your eyes will be better than mine. Gotta hand it to Marco, he's clearly using that brain cell this time around. It does help that his life is on the line. Marco heads to Gorilla as Jake is his eyes in the sky. Marco lifts up some of the cars with his gorilla strength and basically just sets off a whole bunch of car alarms. He also punches the door of Chapman's car because why not? And then he runs back into the darkness to demorph, leaving carnage in his wake. Carnage. The controllers pour out of the antique store, rather cross with both the interruption and the vandalism that has been done to all of these cars. Well, come on, dude, Marco replied. I'm in a tree down the street. What are you waiting for? I can't go yet, Marco, I said. I have to make sure my father's all right. I have to make sure he's still... there's no way of telling if he has a controller in his brain from looking at him, but it would seem that the fact that Tom is super keen for his dad to go back inside and just finish the meeting, that would indicate that they have not yet implanted a Yik in his head. But his dad insists that they go home and call the insurance agent, so, sucks to be you, Tom. Tom is insistent that he's going to stay until that meeting's end, but Jake's dad just says, get home at 10. Love the idea of a Yik with a curfew. Jake, that's round 1, you know that, Marco said after a moment. Yeah, I said. I know. The fight to save my father had only begun. Late that night, of course, they all meet in Cassie's barn and discuss various things that have gone on. The others are, understandably, a little annoyed about all the risks that Jake has been taking with all of their lives. This energy is not super conducive to coming up with a great plan, though. This is so stupid, Rachel said. I mean, we're suddenly in a knockout, drag-out fight behind some funeral. This is idiotic. This is a nothing fight. No possible gain for us. All we can do is get hammered. We've definitely, it feels to me at least, reached kind of a slog point in the series where we can't introduce, new terrible big bads because we're getting towards the end, but we also can't do anything, everything has to kind of mean nothing. It is getting a little bit tiring. Maybe we need another David trilogy. We don't need more David, but another David trilogy of sorts. They conclude that the Yiks are going to do one of a few things, because they rely on Tom having his cover. They will Yikify the dad, they will kill the dad, or they will kill Tom. None of these options are great. As an orphan, Tom's cover isn't affected, might even be enhanced, Rachel said. And then, looking me straight in the eye, she said, and Tom would probably be the one to do it. I don't like any of the options. I don't think any of them are good. Let's keep going. Until they head out to that cabin in the woods, which is feeling like a less good idea by the moment, Jake's dad is under constant 24-hour Animorphs supervision. Jake calls the school and pretends to be his dad to call in sick, which works well enough, and he morphs to Roach while his dad is in the kitchen, planning on hopping inside his pants cuff so they can go to work with him. But as Jake is going into the kitchen, his dad drops a jar of jam onto the floor, and Jake gets stuck in it. I fought it, but that just made things worse. I lost my balance and rolled over onto my back, all 6 legs pushing frantically at the raspberry glue. Seeds like footballs jammed the chinks in my armour. From far, far up in the stratosphere, I heard my dad yell a word he's not supposed to use in front of the kids. Then I guess he saw me, because he said a worse word. And then Jake's dad unknowingly attempts to murder his own son. There's running, there's climbing of legs, there's dramatic slapping. At last, by hiding in the folds of his dad's trousers, Jake manages to convince him that he has in fact gone. He has not. And they make it to his father's work. He pulls up into the parking lot, parks the car, heads on out. The Axe and Tobias are there keeping an eye out while the others are at school. And they notice a bearded man looking kind of angrily at Jake's dad, but he doesn't do anything yet. Jake waits around all day at the office. It's a doctor's office, by the way, occasionally hopping into a bathroom stall to demorph and remorph and do all of that stuff. Nothing seems to go particularly wrong for his dad's day, and all the while his dad is doing his doctoring, Jake's thinking about what a great dad he is, what a great person he is, how much it would suck if he was murdered by his own son, who is being puppeted by a slug in his brain. But it's the end of the day, and as they head back out, Tobias warns them that angry bearded man is still waiting in the parking lot. They need morphs to deal with this man, but if the Yeerks realise that the Andalite bandits are trying to prevent them from doing anything to this specific man, who, in the grand scheme of things, as far as they're aware, doesn't mean anything to anyone, things aren't going to go great for those Andalite bandits / human teenagers. I don't think they'd be great. Jake finds the best of both worlds, and as a cockroach, hops from the back of his dad's head into the bearded guy's face, which makes him freak out, understandably. But Jake's dad doesn't know that this guy was a threat to him, so instead tries to help him out because he's so nice. Then Tobias swoops down, talons extended, and grabs the man's toupee, with Jake intact. Little cockroach on a toupee, flying out. I'm going to circle back for Tobias began. No, I yelled, angry. We might as well tattoo the Animorphs were here onto the guy's head. Stay back. Don't attack unless you see the beard move to attack. But he doesn't move to attack. He's talking to Jake's dad, who is comforting him, telling him that the bird is gone. So it turns out that the angry, now bald man is upset because Jake's dad parked in his parking spot, which there aren't reserved parking spots in this car park, but he's cross about it. I'd hesitated. I'd had no answer. No harm this time, but if the attack had been real, I was tired. Axe and Tobias were tired. We were measurably diminished, and the enemy had lost nothing. The attack was still to come. Bum, bum, bum. Tobias and Axe reluctantly head on off to get some rest. I would say head home, but they live in the wilds. Jake makes it home and demorphs and hops into bed before his dad can see him, but then Tom comes into the room instead. Did Tom see Jake demorph? We're going to say probably no, because if he had, Jake would probably be being hauled off to Vista 3 right now. But all seems weirdly well. I mean, Tom's not happy about going tomorrow, but he doesn't seem to be fighting it either. That evening, while his dad is watering the lawn before they leave, Jake sees Tobias flying around, and because he's kind of antsy, he decides to go and morph to bird and flap around with him for a bit, do some surveillance. And thank goodness he does, because as he and Tobias start to have a little heart-to-heart, they realise that there is a car pulling up outside Jake's house, and it looks like they're going to do a drive-by. Jake lands on the corner of his house and does a risky demorph in the shadows of the roof. He does so as Tobias keeps an eye out and sort of falls down the side of his house, trying to avoid any of the places where Tom is so he doesn't see his half-bird brother dropping outside. He does hear Tom, though. Perfect timing, he said coldly. He's out front alone. Go for it. I know it's a Yeerk and not Tom, but the two really have become interchangeable, and I kind of hate Tom, even though I know he is very much a victim in this situation. It's hard, because the Yeerk doesn't have a name. But at the last minute before they can shoot him, Jake limps on over, having fallen off the roof, and offers his dad some help. And his dad says yeah, and heads back inside to pack. But the car starts to pull up as his dad's going inside, so Jake has to use the hose that he's using to water the lawn to just splash Chapman in the face a little bit. And his dad escapes unshot. But Jake does see Tom through the window. He was framed in our living room window, his eyes burned with rage. There's a little bit more plot, and then worse was knowing that my brother Tom, my true brother, had been trapped inside his own mind, trapped watching as the killers prepared to murder his family, helpless, watching, unable to open his own mouth to shout a warning. Okay, I sympathise, it's just hard, it's hard, okay? Jake makes what I believe is another vow to kill whatever Yeerk has infested his brother. Yet again, they all meet in the barn, and yet again, they all agree that Jake took some unnecessary risks. Jake is having a hard time rationalising his behaviour because because, and I agree, his dad is at stake, but also everyone's lives are at stake here. You're too close to this. You can't make this call. I barked out a laugh. What, you're going to decide whether my dad lives or dies? That's pretty much it. They're planning on a vote. Which they do even though Rachel and Axe aren't there, because they know that Axe would abstain, saying this is a human matter, and Rachel would absolutely side with Jake. Tobias makes some very good points. Number one, they respect human life. If they just write off Jake's dad, it makes them no better than the Yeeks. Two, if Jake's dad is also a controller, that makes 2 controllers in the house with one of the Animorphs. They are doubling their risk of being caught. And 3, and probably the most important one, eventually the Yeeks are going to realise that someone keeps foiling their plans. So why not get on the offensive rather than the defensive? What if they distracted the Yeeks from kidnapping Jake's dad until the morning when they leave? Marco, who to be honest was going to lose the vote anyway, decides they can go with that plan. He stepped towards me. He held out his hand. Nothing personal, Jake. I was just looking out for the group. I left his hand hanging in midair. After a while, he withdrew it. The bros. The bros. Jake suddenly has a plan. Finally those leadership instincts kick in. They're gonna kidnap Chapman. The idea is that this will make the Yeeks prioritise their resources. They will want to look for Chapman. They will stop caring as much about Tom. Marco describes it as maximum panic situation, which to be honest fits a lot of Animorphs plots. Rachel and Axe show up, they're okay with the plan too. Cassie and Tobias agree to guard Jake's house for now while the others go and kidnap Chapman. They're going to need some brute strength for this one, so hiding in an abandoned house across the road, Jake morphs to Rhino. Axe has gone for his kind of megamorph human form, not megamorphs the books, just a mixture, and he knocks on the door and says, "Hey, can I talk to Melissa? We have some homework together." Melissa being Chapman's daughter, who we met in book 2. Marco's a gorilla, Rachel's a bear. They're not at the door, but just so you know who is what. As Chapman heads off to grab Melissa, Axe lets them know what's inside. "It is as you suspected, Prince Jake," Axe said. "This controller has added security devices since our last infiltration. There are motion sensors camouflaged as a mirror frame in the front hallway, and I suspect Draken beams concealed in the eyes of a statuette facing the doorway." As Melissa steps onto the porch, Marco reaches down and drags her up out of the way so that she can't see any of the horrors about to happen. Axe leaps out of the way and runs into cover so that he can demorph while the others charge in behind Jake, the Rhino of Destruction. Jake makes it into the house, pretty forcefully. Even that Drakenbeam statue's not stopping him. Mrs. Chapman, also a controller, runs out of the kitchen with a handheld Drakenbeam that can do a bit more damage. But Rachel smacks her into a wall and she is knocked out for the remainder of the fight. Axe in Andalite form joins them and they give Chapman a little bit of a head start so he can sound the alarm, because this plan doesn't work if they don't discover that he's been kidnapped. Then they try and grab him, but he shoots Marco with a normal handgun, which is, yeah, super effective. It's not good. Despite also being shot with a handgun, Jake manages to hit Chapman and almost fully Rhino charges at him to kill him. Yay! But he does manage to stop, mostly because his legs give out rather than for any moral reasons. I demorphed to the sound of Melissa's terrified cries and to the wail of approaching police sirens. While Jake was dealing with his own Rhino form, Marco managed to demorph, remorph, not die, and he's got Chapman slung over his shoulder. They take him to the place they planned to stash him, the house just over the road where they were hiding earlier, because they figure the Yeeks aren't going to search that close to home. Just a reminder that they cannot speak or even thought speak to Chapman because he will know who they are, so Axe has to do all of the talking. "So Yeek," he sneered imperiously, "now you are mine." Chapman started to tremble. He whimpered, soft and low. They aren't fond of this plan. This interrogation, intimidation, not quite torture, but kind of plan. Axe particularly so. This is not honourable battle. With the threat of Kandrona starvation in play, surely Chapman is going to play ball. But that very threat, that horrible, horrible thing, is what Jake's brother is going to experience. And Jake has to leave Axe there. They've got to get on with the next part of the plan. This is what I'd led us to. Marco nearly killed, Melissa Chapman terrorised, and Axe left to spin tales of horror for a helpless captive. Marco wouldn't need to take another vote. I was done being the leader. I mean, maybe we could take a vote on the leader. You know, democracy. Jake doesn't sleep well that night, and at 3:30 a.m. Tobias lets him know that the Yeeks are coming. Jake tiptoes down the hall and checks on his father, who is still sleeping, and Tom, who is not in his bed. My brother was gone, probably out with the rest of the controllers, searching frantically for Chapman. Tobias must have seen him go, but didn't want to wake me up. Tobias just wants you to be well rested, my guy. The hours go by. Tobias lets Jake know that Tom has snuck in through the back door, and so Jake heads on back to check on Chapman. There's a lot of moving parts in this one. He gets together with Axe, who lets him know that he's managed to walk on some broken glass to make it very evident that the glass is there, so that hopefully Chapman will figure out that as soon as he's alone, he can use that to cut his bonds. They don't actually want to kill Chapman. Good, I said. No, Prince Jake, nothing about this is good, Axe snapped. This is not behaviour suitable to a warrior. I will not do this again. Which, good. Axe offers Chapman one last chance to tell them who the most important Yeek controllers, human controllers are, but Chapman is not giving the information, so they leave him. He thinks they're leaving him to die. They are actually leaving him to escape. And he will return to his people a hero, Axe said. This will become an oft-repeated and much celebrated chapter in Yeek history. My name will become legend, synonymous with ineptitude, a brutal fool of an Andalite. Axe, I wouldn't have asked you to do it if it wasn't so important. Axe looked at me, fierce hawk eyes glittering. They're in bird morph now. Important to you, Jake, or to the war effort? Whew. Deep stuff. Jake then lies to his friends about when they're planning on leaving for the mountains so they can go there alone, determined that no one else is getting hurt because of him. A classic Animorphs plotline that always works as intended. This was my family, my brother the killer, my father the target, and me, the fool in the middle. There's a song in there somewhere. Jake's plan is that if his brother tries to do anything, he will morph, kill his brother, and deal with the consequences. Anyone concerned for the fate of Homer the dog need not worry. It is confirmed that he is staying with Rachel. Good, good. And now for 8 hours of driving. A horrible car experience. Even if Tom's Yeerk managed to have Kandrona last night, there is still no way he is getting through to Tuesday without, dying of Kandrona starvation. They make it to the cabin at last, and as they arrive, they see a hawk swoop down on a small animal. Survival of the fittest, Tom murmured, his mouth curving into a small secret smile. Well, this will all surely be fine. They take some time as a family to reminisce after Jake's great-grandpa, who sounds like he was a nice man, who just kind of wanted to leave everything behind him and not talk about it. Some people just can't deal with the reality of war, I guess, Tom said, offhandedly, earning shocked looks from my parents and grandparents. What a wang this Yeerk was. No wonder they put him into the body of a teenager. Tom and Jake have a brotherly one-on-one chat, or a brother to Yeerk one-on-one chat, while they go through Grandpa G's old footlocker, reminiscing about his old stories about how one night they all sang Silent Night both in German and English, because that is a story that everyone loves to repeat about the war. It's one of the nice ones where no one dies horribly. Don't you remember how he told us all this, Tom? I pressed, wanting him to admit he remembered, wanting ridiculously the real Tom inside to push hard enough to break through just for a minute and be my totally human brother again. And then we get some insight into Tom, or the Yeerk's, worldview, which is that winning is most important. Everything else doesn't matter. Honour? No. Anything? No. Winning. Winning shows you are the best. Things get more tense when Tom takes out a dagger that his great-grandpa must have taken from the enemy. When Jake objects to Tom taking the weapon, Tom's like, well, you get the medals, I get the dagger. It's all fine. And Jake has to say, well, no, we should probably talk to Grandma about that before we take things. And their discussion continues while Tom keeps holding that knife in a very safe and helpful way. Jake believes there is good and evil, while Tom, Yeerk, believes there is only the strong and the weak. But he does at last put the knife down, and they hunker down into their little beds in the attic and go to sleep. Oh no, it's a horrible nightmare where everything starts off and people are singing Silent Night and it's lovely, and then Jake gets horrifically stabbed. But he does wake up, so it wasn't real. However, Tom's bed is empty, and it's way too late for Tom to just randomly have nipped to the loo or anything. So Jake sneaks down and sees that his father is also missing. Yep, the worst is happening. My father and Tom were sitting down at the end of the dock, talking and dangling their feet in the water. My father laughed and gave Tom's shoulders a quick, spontaneous hug. Tom's sweatshirt bunched up in the back, revealing for a moment the gleaming dagger wedged in his pocket, which is terrible knife safety, by the way. Jake has to do something, and that something may involve killing his brother. But as Jake morphs to Tiger and Tom reaches for the dagger, something goes on in the lake water, and the dock that they are sat on collapses. His dad falls in the water, and though he's a strong swimmer, something seems to be pulling him away. Tom swims through the water trying to finish off the job, but then a dolphin emerges and smacks him about the head, so he's knocked unconscious. Tom is slipping below the water. His dad cannot get to him, but Tiger Jake might be able to. If Tom died, he would at last be free. That if the Yeerk died, I would have my revenge. That we would be safer, stronger, freer with the controller named Tom dead and gone. Didn't know what to do. Jake, demorph, a voice ordered. You're in the open. Demorph. I obeyed, glad for once to take orders rather than to give them, relieved to have the decision made for me. So yes, of course, the others followed him. We knew this was going to happen. They push Tom to the edge of the lake and Jake flips him over, in human form now, and his leg is very clearly quite nastily broken. I looked down at Tom. Inside his head was a killer. He'd almost killed my father. But what I saw, the eyes I looked into, those belonged to my big brother. Their dad calls an ambulance and a helicopter comes to take Tom away, and only at that point does Jake leave Tom's side. So, they ship Tom all the way back to the hospital in the town that they have come from because his leg is so badly broken, and also it gets him back to the Kandrona race so he does not die. Jake heads outside and talks to the others. His How Tobias kept watch, and yeah, they all snuck up to see them. Cassie even risked morphing to whale in very shallow water in order to break the dock. Where's Marco, I said. Cassie shrugged. He didn't know if you'd want to see him right away. Thought you might need some time to calm down or whatever? What a supportive bro giving his bro some space. Turns out this whole thing was Marco's plan, so he's having some good ideas lately. And the Chi were also involved. They piloted the helicopter and made sure Tom got back. And so they have a nice normal chat about how things might have gone differently, and they were kind of maybe thinking about if Marco had murdered Jake's brother. Normal chats. What are we anymore, Marco? What's happened to us? He didn't answer. I didn't expect him to. We both knew what had happened. And so, they attend the funeral of a war veteran. And Jake, on reflection, thinks that, like his great-grandfather, he probably too isn't going to want to speak about any of this when it's all over. Everything was back the way it had been. My brother still lived, so did the enemy inside him. It had all been a pointless battle. No one had wanted it, no one had profited. Everyone had suffered. Chapman, Axe, Tom, Marco, and some guy who just wanted his parking space back. And me. But we'd all survived. And in war, any time you wake up to see the sunrise, it's a victory. Whew! Heavy stuff in this one, and my camera battery is dying, so let's jump on straight to the outro. This has been the first video in Animorphs April. We have 3 more videos coming, so if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated, and it motivates this series to go on. You could also like this video if you liked it. Otherwise, I don't know what you would be doing here. Come hang out on Discord, where we have a dedicated Animorphs channel if you would like to chat Animorphs. That's all in the description as well. Thank you so much to my patrons who are getting this a little bit early. I'm a little bit late in filming it. You're not getting it as early as I want you to, but you are getting it early. Sorry, guys. Thank you so much for watching. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one.